I told you it would be only a short time before our next live. So here we are. We are doing our next live, same place, Hands of Fate. This is the other owner. This is Brick's better half, and this is Sam. Sam, tell us about you. Hi, Sam.
Hey, everybody. I'm Sam. I grew up in a really small, tiny town of about 600 people in Iowa, right on the Mississippi River, 14 hours north of here, basically. As a kid, I saw things, and everybody said it was my overactive imagination. And when I was 7, when my grandpa died, he came back to me in dreams, and they were like, oh, that's the way you're processing your grief. But at 16, when my grandmother was killed in a car accident, I went through a really crazy time where I felt her around, and even more spiritual activity. And everybody was like, oh, no, this is really you processing it all. And I'm like, no, I got in a car accident where I should have probably died, and I only remember the car getting ready to go in the ditch and then standing on the road. So, very bizarre, you know what I mean? So it's like the reality check, like, no, she was there taking care of me. I moved to California when I was 18. While I was there, I lived in the middle of the Redwoods in Northern California.
Oh, wow, pretty.
Well, the thing that's interesting is you hear people talk about elemental energy and all of that stuff as well.
Yeah.
But you don't think about 1,000-year-old trees, what they really do have around them. And I learned so much about the elementals, the energy of nature in a whole other way. I was used to the river and the water and that type, but this is the forest, the playful fairies, the gnomes, all of that energy that people talk
exciting.
about. No, exactly.
The hedge witchery.
Yeah, the hedge witchery, exactly. And so, not realizing how much I was learning along the way, I moved to Southern California, and I was dealing with some stuff, and I couldn't, I had some counselors that couldn't help me. And in the process, I met this little old lady, her name was Pat Chalfant, and she ran a spiritualist class on Saturdays. And in the process, of meeting her and talking to her, she just started laughing, and I'm like, what's so funny? And she goes, oh, honey, you just got dead people around you.
Nice.
Let me teach you how to talk to them. And as much as I didn't want to believe that, I started sitting with her on Saturdays. And what happened was 10 years of classes passed, every Saturday sitting with her and a few other ones. Mm-hmm. There was about 4 or 5 of us core people in that class. And we would do like a spring or like a fall session and like a spring session, and keep the summer off and like keep winter off a little bit too.
Yeah.
But just learned everything more from a spiritualist standpoint. So basic meditation, platform mediumship, billet reading, psychometry, all of this stuff that I don't know that people necessarily learn that in this similar fashion, whereas that was you go in a sitting circle and it was literally just like a workout.
Wow.
You're going to do it every time, kind of the same way.
Yeah.
And then we'll do a little hands-on healing at the end, but just really opening up to that. In that process, I work in the movie business, so I started doing readings on the side on the weekends while I worked during movies during the week. And in that process, it just grew exponentially to Body, Mind, and Spirit expos. Pat would every once in a while get a hold of me, and she would say, I have a client that I think belongs to you.
Oh, nice.
So why don't you take this? And it would be missing persons cases and things of that nature as well, too.
Nice.
And so back in that process, I met some shamanic people, some medicine circles. Did a lot of that.
Yeah.
It
just makes you stronger, right?
Well, you
learn.
Oh my gosh, I have amazing teachers from South America, Costa Rica, Hawaii, and some that live in the States here as well.
Yeah.
And the thing I love about the medicine circles is what it taught me of being able to heal on a whole nother level exponentially, but how to tune into people, recognize what's going on with them as well, and be able to help them through that process.
That's amazing.
Learning to be their battery for them. A lot of times I think we're human biomagnets. We leave traces where we go, but we pick everything up as well. And so our body is used to using that much energy to hold whatever the space. We need that tap in. We need someone else to help jumpstart and push that energy to clear.
That is so cool.
So,
very good.
Yeah, so a lot of the work I do is really... it's really mediumship, connecting with loved ones that have crossed, but I've learned to do some shamanic healing work and cleansing work.
So now with your mediumship,
yeah.
How do you work? Do you work with cards? Do you just call in? How do you work with your mediumship?
So I really sit down and I do like a little prayer of intention. And when I go to do that, I have a little notebook because I see flashes, colors, hear things, whatever, and I just write it all down.
Oh, cool.
So sometimes I'll see chakra colors or colors telling me what's going on with the person. I have scenarios. I've made this great dialogue with my spirit guide where it's like certain symbolism means certain things. Like if I see a boat in the middle of the lake, it's usually a time when people come
Your
through
spirit
music.
dictionary.
Yeah, my spirit dictionary. Yeah, exactly. Well, you have to grow those words with your spirit guides so they can only show you the closest thing to what
your
they
frame
want
of
to show you.
reference. Yeah,
Exactly.
I have that too. So if I see a motorcycle of a very specific type and color, I know that's sense of freedom, right? They need a sense of freedom. If it's moving, it means their sense of freedom is stalled or whatever. So I have that dictionary as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think we all do to some extent.
Yeah. Well, they say that spirit can only work with what's in your brain. So the more you learn, the more you know, the more it can work.
And I was just talking about that the other day, that you have to be well-rounded because you can't give if the well is dry. So you have to take, which is one of the reasons I'm here in Nolans.
Well, people will look at the altar that we have, and we have all the different deities from many different cultures, and they ask why I have all of that there, and I'm like, because at some point I've had to reference all of these storylines for clients that have come to me of some sort of whatever. So it's my reverence for them as well.
Yeah.
And it's everyone is welcome. Everyone is here. I think, I always think about it like whatever divine needs to speak to us, we'll put the mask on and wear it so that way we'll listen. Agreed. And so I think of it in a whole other way.
I love how you say that, though. That is such a beautiful explanation.
Well, I wrote a really interesting play where there was a film that I think I might need to finish up a little bit more of it, but it's about the three muses that kind of have a wall of masks behind them, and whenever they need to speak to the humans in Dreamtime, they grab the mask and put it on and become that deity.
Oh my God, that is brilliant! Oh, I want to read that. And
it makes sense.
Yes, and you also have, and I have to. Yeah, please. I was just going to reach for that.
Okay. Yes. And then this is an interesting thing. I never thought I would write, but I'm a storyteller. So this is Waking the Dead, a shamanic medium's stories of life after death. It's 9 client stories and 1 premonition dream. And the reason for that is, to me, the universe is constantly speaking. And it's not necessarily even about telling the world about the premonition dream. It's about how are we going to support the world when those major devastations and things happen. Right. Like this talks about the Japanese tsunami 97 days before it happened.
What?
When I had a dream about it, yeah.
Wow.
And I woke up in the middle of the night and I typed it in my phone, Japanese tsunami artwork / vision. And I did that because I wanted to recreate it because I knew it was something more going on.
Yeah.
And I even typed it in my phone. I actually took a picture of it just because I knew that something was up. The reality check was 97 days later it happened. And then I started to realize the universe wanted all of the healers, everyone to know what is coming, so we can support the earth as 100,000 people are wiped off in 10 seconds.
Right.
So we can help people to emotionally process that level of grief and sorrow and loss.
It's interesting you say that because at that time it made me realize that, how people, just as they were dying or they have these life-altering events, they say, I see an angel or I saw an angel, and I truly believe that those angels, some of them could actually be other people who are astral traveling because they're on the same plane. Right, they're on that same vibration. So it's not just angels that they were seeing or guides or guardians that were helping them, but other human souls that are connecting to them in that moment.
Very much so. One of my favorite beliefs or understanding, spiritualists have a belief that the soul can shatter upon death.
Yes.
And everyone that cared about that person or had a beef with them takes a piece. And then in dream time, while they're healing on the other side, they pick up those pieces in life review and collect them. Wow. And then they get to sit there and decide, am I going to hang out near the family, stay close to the earth plane, or am I going to travel that rainbow bridge and go sit with the masters and process this life and then decide what the next one is?
Yeah.
That makes the most sense to me.
Yeah.
And we were talking earlier a little bit about people getting energies and overlays and all of this stuff.
Yes.
Sometimes people can carry the broken part of that person that passed. It can be their addictive piece. It can be these other pieces as well. Mm-hmm. And so one of the weirdest things that I've noticed happens is when people have those broken traumas in the past, from those abuses, those molestations, those traumas of watching people die before them, those darknesses, those create little cracks in the auric field, so it's easier for some of those pieces to be held on to and for them to feed them in another way.
Yeah.
So sometimes we were talking earlier about how sometimes people can seem like they're overlaid with energy. That's very real.
And what do you mean by overlaid, so our audience knows what that means?
So if you keep your bubble healthy,
yes,
if you eat healthy, take care of yourself mentally, spiritually, emotionally, kind of centered, you kind of naturally keep your auric field pretty strong.
Mm-hmm.
Only compulsive energies can tap on the outside, and you kind of hear it like someone knocking at the door in the distance. When you're really worn out, when the traumas, the doors are open and things of that nature, those energies can slide in.
Mm-hmm.
That compulsive energy then kind of bounces around inside, and it becomes more obsessive energy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So then people kind of be a little more sketchy with their energy. They become a little more obsessive about things that having to happen as well. And that's just when they start to listen to it so much. That's what many times we'll call possession.
Right.
You know
Or
what I mean?
attachments.
Or attachments.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't like to call it possessions because that's a really...
It's a rare thing.
In the 30 years of witnessing people through this stuff, I've seen a couple times where there's been things that you could call quote-unquote possession.
Right.
But a lot of times it's really bigger pieces of consciousness of other things that have passed into that as well.
Yep.
That they're
Agreed.
holding on to.
Yeah.
And so that's really why I do this work. I had something happen from when I was younger, and I had a shadow figure following me, and no one could put their finger on it. But as I recognized the abuse that had happened, that shadow, they could see it clearly what it was or who that person was, wanting that forgiveness.
Right.
And so a lot of people's shadow stories are things that haven't come to light yet.
Yeah.
It's not that they're bad, it's a fear closet
They're
story.
not ready yet.
Because they haven't brought it into the light to talk about it or to see it and recognize what it is.
Wow, that's a beautiful way of looking at that.
You can go crazy in the process of recognizing that.
Yes, it's a rabbit hole, right?
Yeah,
it's a rabbit hole. Now, the other thing that we were talking about is because you had said that you're in the film industry, a lot of filming goes on in New Orleans, and especially where the eerie stuff or the scary stuff, and of course historical things. Like, we're not going to, not talk about that, but the reality is New Orleans is known for this community, for our community, for lack of, I'm not going to say our community because I'm not in New Orleans, but I'm energetic.
Right now as you're talking, and I call those truth bumps. Or like
I like that, truth bumps.
Yeah, truth bumps.
Oh, I like that. I'm going to
people
use
call
that.
them God bumps, whatever. But it's like, they say that's when we're raising our vibration, spirits lowering ours, and that's when we touch.
The connection
when we get
point.
That connection point.
Yeah,
and
for
so
sure.
you talk about that, and to me, this city, New Orleans, I've lived in Los Angeles for a number of years, did a few years in Portland, a few years in Atlanta. This city reminds me of Mos Eisley Cantina from Star Wars.
Oh my God, that makes so much sense.
It's like the intergalactic center where everything comes to hang out and have a drink.
Yeah. No, for sure.
And so it's very weird. So you get all these different colorful characters in very interesting ways here. And it's there's layers that are thick that you can feel. You're almost walking through the spiritual doorways at different times in this city. 300 years of history that we know of, on top of this being sacred land, where the natives used to come here, and this would be where they traded and where they would hunt and gather.
Yeah.
So there's all of these levels of stories here as well too.
Yeah.
The other thing is, yes, a lot of filming. I did a movie a few years ago. It was about some slavery and about Civil War and about a slave who had gotten some freedom. We actually filmed on some of the sites that were true to the storyline. And overwhelming, but I actually called Brick at one point and I said, hey, there's a little boy here that I believe died of yellow jacket, another one I think drowned in the lake here. Ghost on this property. Goes, oh yeah, that's the story of the two boys on that property.
Oh wow.
And so to me, the story wants to be told. It sticks around until it's heard.
Yes, agreed.
Agreed. It
needs acknowledgement.
It needs an acknowledgement.
So, being an owner of a shop here, do you find that it's very, very supported by people, by the community? Like, what's it like being a shop owner here at New Orleans?
The thing is, the wildest part is it's like you have people that dabble in or want to understand or believe they understand more of this work.
Yeah.
And then you have the people that really get it, and it's kind of fascinating because people will walk up to the door and people will either want to walk in and are really invited in, or they feel weird and
Yeah.
step away.
Yeah.
And a lot of times there's people that have little attachments or little fear closet stuff that they don't want to walk in, because when you step in here, it's meant for healing. It's meant for you
Yes.
to release the things. That energy knows that it could have to leave.
Yeah,
It
your
comes in.
spirit will become restless. It'll become resistant because it knows that I'm going to have to heal. I'm going to have to do some work.
Exactly.
Like I'm going to have to, just by stepping in here, I'm going to change.
So I do shamanic healing work. I do cleansing, like past life, soul retrieval pieces, things of that nature. And a lot of times, I would say 30% of my clients will cancel their first appointment and reschedule because that's the energy they wake up in.
Yeah.
And the weird part is like, I wake up in the middle of the night. I wake up and feel chest pains, headaches. Felt like I got shot in the leg a few months ago, and it was very bizarre. And I don't have people lined up. A lady came in for a reading that next afternoon, and I was telling her that my leg had seized up on me, and I was telling her, yeah, my calf and my ankle. And she goes, oh, my business partner died 2 weeks earlier. He was shot in the back, the calf, and the ankle.
Oh my God.
And
Yeah.
she
See.
hadn't got to go home. See, these are the physicalities that I can't really like. So that's the physicality of my mediumship, and not everybody gets that.
Well, see, it's funny because a few hours to a day before, I sometimes will get things from clients to understand it more, what they're going through more deeply. So
Exactly.
when you told that story, I'm like, oh my God, I
Oh,
totally
absolutely.
get that.
You could
That's
ask
amazing.
anyone that has been near me when I'm sleeping, where I will wake up in the middle of the night and say, come to me when I'm having coffee, or come to me at the shop when your human's there.
Yeah.
Like I literally have that conversation with spirits.
Yeah.
Because it's very real. And again, as much as I didn't want to believe it was to this level,
Yeah.
it's very real.
Yeah.
And spiritual warfare and mental warfare go hand in hand. They have
Yeah.
to be, when people are having these mental breaks, a lot of times there's some spiritual
Oh, they're waiting.
overtones.
There are things that are waiting.
Yeah, there's
Oh,
things
yeah.
that are pressure to be healed.
Yeah, agreed.
And so that's a huge piece in it. So I think we just look at it in a whole different way, especially in this country or Western society.
I agree.
You know?
Now you have this, and I'm sorry, I have to have people know this story. You have this fun story about doing a Halloween party at somebody's house.
Oh, I got to do a really cool Halloween party for, this is years ago, for Nicolas Cage and Lisa Marie Presley.
Oh wow! When he was married to Lisa Marie Presley.
Well, they weren't married; they were
Okay. They were-
engaged.
Okay.
But no, it was a very interesting, because it was actually after, it was the year of 9/11, and they canceled it. They didn't want to do it in 2 weeks before the party. They decided they wanted to still have it. Because they wanted to give people some hope and something to look forward to,
Yeah.
as opposed to all the sorrow from 9/11. So we did this. We built this whole little, decorated his house up, had a sideshow in back, had characters dressed up like Dracula and Mina attacking each other in the back.
Wow.
Yeah, it was
That's
very
really
interesting.
neat.
Yeah, and it was funny because you could tell he was watching me for a couple of days, and then on the third day he grabbed me. He's like, "Come here." And then we went up and we had a conversation. I was laughing because all of my workers pretended like they were working so they could kind of listen to what he was
Listen in
saying.
on the what's he saying? Oh my god. But you said something really interesting earlier about that, is that he was cautious and that he's a cautious person.
Yeah,
You know, that kind of thing. And I think that not only goes to his celebrity, but it also goes to his intuition, because, you know, pulling you out of the crowd or even talking to you and knowing, you know, that you're who you are. That's amazing. Like, you know, I think he's pretty cool, to be honest.
Well, working in the movie business, I had one of my very first movies I ever did. I had a situation happen where I was driving some people, some of the main actors around, to and from where they were staying to set in that. And one day, the one actress, we dressed her up so she looked like she was really haggard, almost like a bag lady, because that was her part. And we're filming on a street in LA. And as we're getting ready to film, 2 blocks away, there's a guy with a 4-foot camera lens doing paparazzi shots.
Oh, wow.
And the next day in the paper, ... was seen rummaging through the garbage and stuff like that.
Oh, come on.
And she was in a whole nother, like, separation with her husband.
Yeah.
As well as we were in the middle of filming a movie.
Yeah.
So, like, when we saw that, we literally, everybody got their umbrellas out. We covered her up. We walked her to the trailer and had to put her away. And, like, so, like, that's the one thing I learned early on in this business is, it's amazing. There's some wonderful talent. You can honor it. You can kind of have a little bit of envy with those people as well. But
Yeah.
they're human as well. They need their space.
Yeah.
And I think when you realize that dance, I think that's why I've also done pretty well in the business, because Which
you
is
understand
another person that I'm rolling into in the morning at 5 in the morning.
Yeah, you're all working on the same project.
Exactly.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this. I truly appreciate you. You are just so enlightening. Both you and Brick are just so wonderful.
Come
and
down,
I love
we'll talk to dead people.
You're red, dude. Yeah, so everybody come down here to Hands of Fate, buy his book. Show us your book again, please.
You can get it on Amazon, actually.
There you go.
Too. Yeah.
Waking the Dead. You guys have to go get that on Amazon. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate you. All right, guys. So, yet another very cool interview. We're going to be, after these messages, we're going to be right back.